Bonjour and bienvenue to the fourth episode of 5 Minute Molière. I'm Felicia Londré, and these 5 Minute Molières are sponsored by KC Molière 400 in 2022. For today, I thought it would be fun to focus on one play. So let's jump ahead toward the end of Molière's career to a play called The Bourgeois gentilhomme, the would-be gentleman, 1670. This is the first one that Molière actually labeled a comédie ballet, although he had been collaborating with the composer Jean-Baptiste Lully on works of the same nature. That is, Molière would write a 5-act comedy, and Lully would compose singing and dancing for the intermission entertainment, the musical interludes, as well as the introductions and the endings. And there were two circumstances behind the creation of this particular play. One was that Lully had already composed a ballet of nations that he knew would please the king with its spectacle, and it had let's say, lampoons of different nationalities, Italians and Spanish and so on. And he wanted to use that for the big finale of a play by Molière. But Molière was also inspired by the visit to Paris of a Turkish emissary named Soliman Aga Mustafa Raka, who arrived in France in 1669 and was left cooling his heels for several months in Paris before Louis XIV, the Sun King, would receive him in an official reception. So then the reception was held at the palace, and Soliman was, it was a fabulous reception, very opulent, but Soliman was miffed because the king would not stand up and step down from the throne and receive his official letters and credentials in the king's own hands. And so Soliman felt insulted by that and let it be known that he felt humiliated and wronged and not treated as well as he ought to be. And then Louis kept him in Paris for 5 more months by delaying the appointment of a French ambassador who would accompany Soliman and his 30 Turkish attendants back to the Ottoman Sultan. And so during that time, Parisians mocked Soliman, the manners of the 30 Turks who were there. They mocked their habit of rolling their eyes, of the way they ate, all of those things, the things we would consider politically incorrect nowadays. But it was fodder for Molière to write this play. Molière and Lully composed the Bourgeois gentilhomme in 5 weeks. It premiered at court for the king and court in October of 1670, and the court loved it so much that they had 4 performances, that is 4 separate evenings of it. And then Molière was allowed to go back to Paris with his company and open the play at his own theater, or well, the theater he was using, the Théâtre du Palais Royal, where the public just loved it. It was wildly successful, but then the king called them back to court. The king wanted to see it again. And so they back to court, 3 more performances. What is this play about? Well, the title character, Monsieur Jourdain, was played by Molière. He's a bourgeois with more money than taste. In fact, a lot of money and no taste. But he's very naive. He's socially pretentious. He wants to advance in the world. And so he gets a tailor to make him fabulous, outrageous outfits that his wife and maid can only laugh at. And he tries to learn aristocratic codes of behavior and civility. He wants his daughter Lucille to get married into the aristocracy, which is, of course, an impossible dream. But his wife and maid and the young man that Lucille loves, trick Monsieur Jourdain into thinking that the son of the Grand Turk is in love with his daughter Lucille. And so the 4th act interlude in the play is the big production number when Monsieur Jourdain is made a Turkish aristocrat, Mamouchi. and that's a word made up by Molière. So he's inducted into the aristocracy, which makes his daughter worthy to marry the son of the Grand Turk. And of course, that is her boyfriend in disguise as a Turk. And so there's a fabulous production number. Well, I see that I've gone, it's already, my time is up, but we can't stop here. Please indulge a couple of extra minutes for this particular 5-minute Moliere, because I want to tell you a couple more things about the play. Some of the highlights. I know I can't go through the whole plot, but a couple of the highlights. On the cover here, you see Monsieur Jourdain, the turban of a Mamamouchi has just been put on his head in that fourth musical interlude. Another highlight is that Lully had a big opening number with lots of singers and dancers, and Molière actually integrated that into scene 1 of the play by having dialogue between a dancing master and a music master. And of course, then Monsieur Jourdain comes in. They try to teach him to sing and dance, and it's very, very funny. And he keeps saying, do people of quality have to know music? Do people of quality have to know how to dance? And of course, they assure him he can't rise in society unless he pays them to teach him what they know. And then there's a fight between music and dance about which one is greater, which one is more important. And my favorite scene, of course, is the philosophy master who teaches Monsieur Jourdain the difference, that there is a difference between prose and poetry. And we get the famous line when Monsieur Jourdain says, "You mean I've been speaking prose all my life without knowing it?" And then also, I have to tell you this part. When Monsieur Jourdain learns the vowels, in French, the vowels are A, E, I, O, U, and that corresponds to our vowels. But when he gets to the our I, O, in French, it's I, O, I, O, I, O, I, O, I, O. The audiences cracked up at that, as I did when I first read this play as a freshman at Montana. Another funny one is Madame Jourdain in drag, playing the shrewish wife of the would-be gentleman. And of course, you have the saucy servant. In this case, it's Nicole, and she has a great shtick of laughing. The actress was very talented at doing laughing dicks. So when she sees his fancy dress, she laughs at him. Finally, I'll finish with influences of the bourgeois gentilhomme. First, there was a fad for turquoise in plays and in ballets, music. They just loved those, what we would call politically correct. And secondly, there was actually a fad for plays with dancing master characters in them. There were over 36 plays in the next few decades with characters, dancing masters. Well, I've gone way over time today, but thank you all for bearing with it. And I hope to have you come again for another episode of 5 Minute Molière. Au revoir, à bientôt.